2003, Lego was losing $1 million every single day. 15 years later, they became the most powerful brand in the world. The secret behind their comeback, it'll blow your mind. Here's something that'll shock you. Lego, the company that makes those colorful plastic bricks your parents probably stepped on in the middle of the night, was once so close to bankruptcy that they were literally selling off their theme parks just to pay the bills. We're talking about a company that had been around for over 70 years, completely collapsing. But what makes the story absolutely insane is what they did next. Because Lego didn't just survive, they didn't just recover. They completely transformed themselves into something nobody saw coming. They went from being a dying toy company that kids were abandoning to becoming a massive entertainment empire that rivals Disney. By the end of this video, you're going to see exactly how a company that was making every wrong decision possible turned things around so dramatically that business schools now study their comeback as one of the greatest turnarounds in corporate history. And the twist? The solution was hiding right in front of them the whole time. Let me paint you a picture of just how bad things were in 2003. Lego had been around since 1932. That's over 70 years of being one of the most loved toy companies on the planet. Generations of kids had grown up playing with Lego bricks. Parents trusted the brand. Everyone knew what Lego was, and yet, somehow, they were dying. The company had racked up debt of almost $800 million. That's not a printing error. $800 million in the red. What do you think of when you hear the word Lego? Simple, colorful bricks. Right, the kind that can build anything your imagination desires. For decades, that simplicity was Lego's greatest strength. But in the early 2000s, the company almost went bankrupt. And the reason why is a lesson for any business, any creative person, or really, anyone who's ever felt overwhelmed. Lego had lost its way. It had forgotten what made it special. Let's rewind to the late 90s and early 2000s. Lego was in trouble. Big trouble. On the surface, things seemed okay. They were still a huge, beloved brand. But behind the scenes, the company was bleeding money. The problem? Complexity. At one point, Lego had over 13,000 different types of pieces in production. 13,000, that's just insane for a toy company. Think about it. Every single unique piece needs its own mold, its own manufacturing line, its own inventory slot. The entire system was buckling under its own weight. Because they had so many different parts, they couldn't produce anything efficiently. They couldn't order raw materials in bulk. Their factories were a jumble of custom processes. Everything was complicated, and everything was expensive. Their supply chain was a complete disaster. They had warehouses overflowing with obscure pieces that a designer had created for one specific set and then were never used again. Meanwhile, they'd run out of basic 2x4 bricks because no one was actually managing the inventory properly. The very company that built its empire on simple, universal bricks had become a bloated, chaotic mess that couldn't even keep track of its own products. And the timing couldn't have been worse. While Lego was struggling with its internal chaos, competitors were circling. Companies like Mega Bloks were pumping out cheaper building blocks that were, let's be honest, pretty much the same thing. They cost half as much, and for many parents, that was a deal they couldn't refuse. Why pay a premium for the Lego brand when you could get something so similar for less? On top of that, the world was changing. The internet was exploding. Video games were becoming more immersive and more popular every year. The entire toy industry was having a hard time competing against digital entertainment. And what was Lego's response? Instead of adapting, they just threw money at random projects, hoping something would stick. They launched a clothing line. They built theme parks. They dabbled in all sorts of weird electronic toys. None of it worked. They were diversifying into oblivion. By 2003, the company was on the brink of collapse. Kia Christiansen, the grandson of Lego's founder and the CEO at the time, knew he was in over his head. He made a brave decision. He admitted he couldn't fix it alone and that the company needed an outsider. Someone who could make the tough, unsentimental choices required to save it. Enter Hota Reinvented Knudstorp. Knudstorp was not a toy guy. He wasn't a lifelong Lego employee steeped in its culture. He was a former management consultant. His job was to look at struggling businesses, diagnose the problem, and fix it. And when he looked at Lego, what he saw horrified him. He later said that he initially thought the stories of the company's problems must be exaggerated, but when he dove into the financials, he realized it was even worse than anyone imagined. The company was so poorly managed that they didn't even know which of their own products were profitable. They were essentially flying blind, making multi-million-dollar decisions based on gut feelings instead of data. Knudstorp's first move was swift, brutal, but absolutely necessary. He had to stop the bleeding. He immediately killed off the projects that were hemorrhaging cash. The clothing line, gone. The theme parks, sold off to Merlin Entertainments. The complex, money-losing electronic gadgets, cancelled. He made the agonizing decision to lay off nearly 3,500 employees, which was almost a third of the entire company. It was a traumatic time for a company that had always felt like a family, but the reality was stark. Without these cuts, there would be no company left at all. Then, he turned his attention to the core of the problem. The pieces themselves. He did something that sent shockwaves through the design department. The designers were furious. They felt their creativity was being handcuffed. They argued that innovation and new, exciting parts were what made LEGO special. How could they possibly create amazing new sets with such a limited palette? But Knudstorp held his ground. He explained that creativity without discipline isn't freedom, it's chaos. And LEGO had become pure chaos. They needed to get back to their roots, back to the simple genius that had made them successful in the first place. And then, a funny thing happened. The designers, forced to work within these new constraints, actually became more creative. It turns out, when you have infinite options, it's easy to get lazy. You just invent a new piece for every little problem. But when you have to solve a problem using only the tools in a limited toolbox, you have to think harder. You have to be more clever. You have to innovate. The sets LEGO produced under these new rules were some of the most interesting and well-designed they had ever made. The constraint didn't kill creativity. It focused Italiano, but cutting costs and streamlining production was only half the battle. To truly thrive, LEGO needed to grow. They needed to find new customers and give their existing fans a reason to keep buying. And the key to this growth came from a place the old LEGO management had completely ignored. Knudstorp noticed something fascinating. There was a thriving, passionate community of adult LEGO fans. They called themselves AFOLs, which stands for Adult Fans of LEGO. These weren't just people who bought a set once in a while. These were dedicated hobbyists, grown men and women who spent thousands of dollars a year on LEGO. They built massive, breathtakingly complex creations. They organized their own conventions. They had bustling online forums where they shared techniques and showed off their models. For years, LEGO had basically pretended these people didn't exist. Their official target market was boys aged 5 to 12. That's who they marketed to. That's who they designed for. The idea that adults were a serious customer base was completely foreign to them. To the old guard, adults playing with LEGO was a little weird. Knudstorp saw it differently. He didn't see it as weird. He saw it as a massive, untapped market. Here was a group of their most passionate, most loyal fans, and the company was actively ignoring them. He changed that immediately. He instructed the company to start engaging with the FOL community. They started listening to their feedback. They created a LEGO ambassador program, where prominent members of the fan community could communicate directly with the company. Most importantly, they started creating products specifically for them. This led to the creation of what we now know as the Ultimate Collector series and the LEGO Ideas platform. Sets like the massive Millennium Falcon or the intricate modular buildings weren't designed for kids. They were complex, expensive, and aimed squarely at adults who appreciated sophisticated design and a challenging build. The LEGO Ideas platform was even more revolutionary. It allowed fans to submit their own designs, and if a project got 10,000 votes, LEGO would review it for production as an official set. It was a brilliant way to harness the creativity of their own fan base. By embracing its adult fans, simplifying its core product, and bringing discipline to its operations, LEGO engineered one of the greatest turnarounds in modern business history. They went from the brink of bankruptcy to becoming the most profitable toy company in the world. The story of LEGO's revival is more than just a business case study. It's a powerful reminder that sometimes, to move forward, you have to go back to basics. It's about understanding what makes you special and having the courage to cut away everything else. It's about realizing that constraints don't have to be limitations. They can be the very things that spark true creativity. And most of all, it's about listening to your most passionate fans, because they might just be the ones who can show you the way forward. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this story, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the brands you love. See you next time. Lego had basically been ignoring these people because they didn't fit the company's idea of who their customer was. But Knudstorp realized something important. These adult fans were some of the most passionate, most engaged customers Lego had, and they spent way more money than kids did. So he made a decision that seemed risky. Lego was going to start designing products specifically for adults. They created a line called Creator Expert, which featured incredibly detailed models of things like the Taj Mahal, the Tower Bridge in London, and classic cars. These sets had thousands of pieces and cost hundreds of dollars. They took days or even weeks to build, and they sold like crazy. Turns out, there were tons of adults who wanted a creative hobby that didn't involve screens. Building a complex Lego set was relaxing, rewarding, and impressive when you finished. People would display their completed sets in their homes like works of art. But Knudstorp didn't stop there. He looked at what else was working and realized that Lego's licensed sets, the ones based on popular movies and franchises, were some of their best sellers. Lego had started making sets based on Star Wars back in 1999, and those had been hugely popular. So Knudstorp pushed to get more licenses. They partnered with Harry Potter, Batman, Marvel superheroes, The Lord of the Rings, and dozens of other franchises. Each partnership brought in fans of those franchises who might not have been interested in regular Lego. Star Wars fans bought Lego Star Wars sets. Harry Potter fans bought Lego Harry Potter sets. Batman fans bought Lego Batman sets. But here's what was really smart about this strategy. When kids bought a Lego Star Wars set, they didn't just build the Millennium Falcon or whatever and then put it on a shelf. They played with it. They took it apart. They mixed the pieces with their other Lego and built new things. The licensed sets were a gateway drug. They got kids interested in Lego, and then those kids wanted more Lego. They'd start buying regular Lego sets too. They'd start building their own creations. Lego had figured out something brilliant. You could use popular franchises to bring people in, but once they were in, they'd fall in love with Lego itself. And then came the move that changed everything. Lego decided to make a movie. Now, toy companies had tried this before. Usually it was a disaster. The movies felt like feature-length commercials. They were cringy and obvious, and kids hated them. But Lego approached it differently. They partnered with a studio called Warner Brothers and hired directors who had made actually good movies. They gave the directors creative freedom. They didn't micromanage every detail to make sure it promoted Lego products. The result was the Lego Movie, which came out in 2014. And holy crap, it was actually good. Like, really good. It was funny, clever, beautifully animated, and had a genuinely heartwarming message about creativity and imagination. Critics loved it. It got nominated for awards. It made over $469 million at the box office, and more importantly, it made Lego cool again. Kids who had maybe aged out of playing with toys watched the Lego Movie and suddenly wanted Lego sets again. Adults who hadn't thought about Lego in years went out and bought sets. The movie created a cultural moment where everyone was talking about Lego. And Lego didn't stop with one movie. They made sequels. They made the Lego Batman movie, which was arguably even better than the first one. They made the Lego Ninjago movie. They created a whole cinematic universe. Each movie reinforced the brand and brought in new customers. Each movie reminded people that Lego was about creativity, imagination, and building whatever you could dream up. But here's what's really impressive. Through all of this success, Lego never lost sight of what Knudstorp had learned during the crisis. They stayed disciplined. They didn't let costs spiral out of control. They didn't chase every shiny new trend. When fidget spinners became a huge fad, Lego didn't rush to make Lego fidget spinners. When slime was everywhere, Lego didn't try to make Lego slime. They stuck to what they were good at, making great building sets. They also did something really smart with their digital strategy. Instead of seeing video games as the enemy, they partnered with game developers to create Lego video games that were actually fun. The Lego Star Wars games, the Lego Batman games, the Lego Harry Potter games. All of these were legitimately good. They had humor, they had heart, And they introduced Lego to kids who might have been spending all their time gaming. And unlike the video games Lego had tried to make in the 1990s, these games were developed by people who knew what they were doing. Lego didn't try to do everything themselves. They found partners who were experts and let them do their thing. This partnership strategy worked in other areas too. Lego collaborated with NASA to create space-themed sets that were scientifically accurate. They worked with architects to create a series of famous buildings. They partnered with Formula One racing teams to create detailed race cars. Each collaboration brought in new audiences while staying true to what Lego was about. They also started paying much more attention to their fan community. They created a platform called Lego Ideas, where fans could submit their own designs. If a design got enough votes from other fans, Lego would consider actually producing it as a real set. This was genius for multiple reasons. First, it gave fans a voice and made them feel heard. Second, it was basically free market research. If thousands of people voted for a design, Lego knew there was demand for it. Third, it created sets that fans were already emotionally invested in because they'd participated in the creation process. Sets that came out of Lego Ideas included things like the NASA, Apollo, Saturn V rocket, a detailed model of the sitcom Friends Central Perk coffee shop, and a tribute to women in NASA. These were sets that Lego's internal designers might never have thought of, but fans desperately wanted. The company also got much better at understanding their different customer segments. They realized that not everyone wanted the same thing from Lego. Some people wanted simple, cheap sets they could build quickly. So Lego made those. Some people wanted massive, complex builds that would take weeks. So Lego made those too. Some people wanted licensed sets based on their favorite movies and shows. Lego had those covered. Some people wanted to build realistic models of buildings and vehicles. Lego created lines specifically for that. Instead of trying to force everyone into one box, they created different products for different people, but all of it was still fundamentally Lego. All of it used the same basic bricks that had been around for decades. This is important, because while Lego was innovating and expanding, they never abandoned what made them special. The basic Lego brick has UNT changed since 1958. A brick from 1958 will still connect perfectly with a brick made yesterday. That consistency, that reliability, is part of what makes Lego special. Kids can inherit Lego from their parents, and it all works together. You can buy a set today and mix it with sets from 30 years ago. Lego had learned the hard way that innovation doesn't mean abandoning your core product. It means finding new ways to use your core product. By 2015, just 12 years after almost going bankrupt, Lego had become the world's most valuable toy company. They'd overtaken Mattel, the company that makes Barbie. Their revenue had grown from $1.3 billion in 2004 to over $5 billion. But the really impressive part wasn't just the financial turnaround. It was how they'd become culturally relevant again. Lego wasn't just a toy anymore. It was a brand that meant creativity, imagination, and quality. It was something that multiple generations could bond over. Parents who played with Lego as kids were now buying it for their own children. The brand was showing up everywhere. Lego sets were being used in schools to teach everything from math to engineering to creative thinking. Therapists were using Lego in sessions to help kids express themselves. Companies were using Lego in team-building exercises. Lego had transcended being just a toy and become a tool for learning, creating, and connecting with others. And the entertainment empire they'd built just kept growing. In 2019, they launched Lego Masters, a reality competition show where teams compete to build the most impressive Lego creations. The show became a hit and spawned versions in multiple countries. They continued releasing movies and specials. They partnered with streaming services to create Lego content. They were everywhere in pop culture, but never in a way that felt forced or desperate. The financial results speak for themselves. In 2022, Lego's revenue hit $9.1 billion. That's a 17% increase from the year before. Their operating profit was $2.9 billion. They're one of the most profitable companies in the toy industry. But what's really remarkable is how they've navigated challenges that have destroyed other toy companies. When Toys R Us, the biggest toy retailer in the world, went bankrupt, it hurt a lot of toy companies. But Lego was fine because they'd built their own stores and had a strong online presence. When the pandemic hit and stores were closed, toy sales dropped across the industry. But Lego actually grew because they'd invested in e-commerce and had products that were perfect for kids stuck at home. When inflation started driving up costs, Other toy companies struggled, but Lego's strong brand meant people were still willing to pay premium prices for their products. They'd built a business that was resilient, adaptable, and sustainable. And they're still innovating. In recent years, they've been working on sustainability initiatives, trying to create Lego bricks from plant-based materials instead of petroleum-based plastic. It's incredibly hard to do because the bricks need to have exactly the same quality and durability as the traditional bricks. But Lego is investing heavily in finding a solution. They're also pushing into areas like augmented reality, where you can use a phone or tablet to see digital animations interact with your physical Lego builds. But they're doing it carefully, making sure the technology enhances the building experience rather than replacing it. The lesson here is crystal clear. Lego is dying because they'd lost sight of what made them special. They were chasing trends, expanding into areas they didn't understand, and making their core product too complicated. They turned things around by getting back to basics, by understanding their customers better, by being disciplined about costs, by finding partners instead of trying to do everything themselves, by staying true to their core values while finding new ways to express those values. The transformation from a company losing $1 million a day to the most powerful toy brand in the world didn't happen because of some magic trick. It happened because of smart leadership, hard decisions, and a commitment to quality and creativity. Knut Storp once said something that perfectly captures Lego's philosophy. He said that Lego's job isn't to give kids what they want, it's to give kids what's good for them. And what's good for kids is open-ended, creative play that lets them build and imagine and create. In a world where kids are constantly bombarded with digital entertainment that's passive and addictive, Lego offers something different, something that engages their minds and their hands, something that doesn't have a right answer or a winning condition, something where the only limit is imagination. That's what Lego almost lost, and that's what they got back. Today, when you walk into a Lego store, you see kids and adults equally excited. You see families building together. You see people proudly displaying their creations. You see creativity happening in real time. That's not just a successful business. That's a brand that matters. That's a company that's actually making the world a little bit better by encouraging people to create, to build, to imagine. From the edge of bankruptcy to becoming more valuable than toys that have been around just as long. From a company that had lost its way to a company that knows exactly what it stands for. From being irrelevant to being everywhere in culture. That's not just a comeback. That's a complete reinvention. And the fact that they did it by going back to their roots, by remembering what made them special in the first place, makes it even more remarkable. So here's the whole story. Lego was losing $1 million every single day in 2003 because they'd forgotten what made them special. They'd chased every trend, created thousands of different pieces, and lost control of their business. They brought in an outsider who made brutal cuts, refocused on their core product, embraced adult fans, leveraged movie franchises, made an incredible film, and built an entertainment empire, all while staying true to the simple plastic brick that started it all. From near bankruptcy to the most powerful toy brand on earth in just 15 years. All because they remembered that creativity doesn't need to be complicated.